Deep within the woods, hidden by towering trees and shrouded in perpetual twilight, stood an ancient house. Locals whispered tales of the forgotten dwelling, their voices hushed, their eyes wide with fear. The house, they said, was a place of sorrow, its timbers soaked in tragedy, its air thick with unspoken horrors. No one dared approach, no one dared even speak its name. For years the house stood silent, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at the world. Vines, thick as pythons, snaked up its crumbling walls, and the forest floor around it was littered with the skeletal remains of trees, struck down by some unseen force. Then, one day, two friends, oblivious to the whispers and warnings, stumbled upon the house. They were young and adventurous, their laughter echoing through the silent woods, their eyes blind to the shadows that danced at the edge of their vision. They did not know the darkness that awaited them.
The friends, Liam and Danny, had been hiking for hours. They were lost, their map long discarded, their laughter replaced by a tense silence. Just as their hope began to dwindle, they saw it. A break in the trees, a glimpse of something man-made through the dense foliage. Curiosity piqued, they pushed through the undergrowth, their hearts pounding with a mixture of anticipation and unease. And then they were there, standing before the house. It was more imposing up close, its decay more pronounced, its silence more oppressive. "Hello?"
Liam called out, his voice echoing strangely in the stillness. There was no answer, only the rustle of leaves and the distant caw of a crow.
Danny, ever the daredevil, grinned and stepped forward. "Let's check it out," he said, his voice tinged with excitement.
Liam hesitated, a shiver running down his spine. Something felt wrong, off, but Danny was already moving towards the house, and Liam, unwilling to be left alone, followed. The front door creaked open as if inviting them in. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay, and dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced the gloom. Cobwebs, thick and grey, clung to every surface, and the furniture was draped in white sheets, resembling ghostly apparitions. The silence inside was unnerving, broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the frantic thudding of their hearts. As they ventured deeper into the house, the light from outside faded, and shadows seemed to press in on them, whispering secrets in the darkness.
Liam swore he saw something move in the shadows, a fleeting glimpse of a figure that vanished as quickly as it appeared. He told Danny, but his friend just laughed, attributing it to Liam's overactive imagination. But Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone.
In what was once the house's study, they found a dusty old diary tucked beneath a pile of books. Its leather cover was cracked and faded, the pages brittle with age. Danny picked it up, blowing off the dust, and began to read aloud. The diary belonged to a woman named Amelia, the last known resident of the house. Her words, penned in elegant cursive, painted a picture of a life slowly unraveling, consumed by grief and fear. She wrote of strange occurrences, shadows moving in the night, whispers in the dark, and a growing sense of dread that permeated the very walls of the house.
As Danny read on, his voice low and hushed, the hairs on Liam's neck stood on end. The words seemed to come alive, filling the room with Amelia's terror, her despair. It was as if she were there with them, her presence lingering in the air, her pain echoing through the decades.
Suddenly, the room grew noticeably colder. The air thickened, making it difficult to breathe.
Panting, my heart, it's pounding so hard.
Liam could feel his heart pounding in his chest, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He looked at Danny, his eyes wide with fear, but his friend was oblivious, caught in the grip of the diary's tale.
"Danny, we need to go, now."
Then they heard it. A low growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house itself. It was a primal sound, filled with rage and hunger, and it sent shivers down their spines.
Whispering, "We need to leave."
Liam grabbed Danny's arm, his voice tight with panic. His eyes darted around the room, searching the shadows for the source of the growl.
"It's too late. We're trapped."
The door slammed shut with a resounding boom, plunging them into darkness. They were trapped. Panic surged through Liam. He fumbled for his phone, but the battery icon blinked ominously empty. He shook it, a futile gesture, as if he could somehow will it back to life.
Frustrated, "Come on, work."
The growling grew louder, closer, and Liam could feel the floor vibrate beneath his feet. He grabbed Danny's arm and pulled him towards the window. It was nailed shut. Desperation clawed at him.
"It's nailed shut. We have to find another way."
They raced from room to room, each one as dark and oppressive as the last. The growling echoing behind them, urging them on. The house seemed to twist and turn, the layout shifting, disorienting them, leading them further into its depths.
Breathing heavily. "We can't keep running in circles."
The house seemed to twist and turn, the layout shifting, disorienting them, leading them further into its depths.
Desperate. "We have to find a way out of here, Danny."
But the house had other plans, and it wasn't going to let them go that easily. They found themselves in a long, narrow corridor, the walls lined with portraits of stern-faced individuals who seemed to follow them with their eyes. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay, and the silence was broken only by the sound of their own ragged breathing and the pounding of their footsteps.
The growling. "It's right behind us now."
The growling was right behind them now, closer than ever, and then they saw it. A hulking, shadowy figure at the end of the hall, its eyes glowing with an eerie, malevolent light.
Oh God, look at its eyes.
Liam cried out, a strangled sound of terror, and they ran, their legs burning, their lungs screaming for air. The figure gave chase, its heavy footsteps shaking the very foundation of the house. They burst through a door at the end of the hallway and found themselves in what appeared to be the house's old nursery. A rocking horse stood frozen in mid-rock, its painted eyes staring vacantly ahead, and there, in the far corner of the room, was a window.
"There, the window. We can get out."
A surge of hope coursed through Liam. He raced towards it, Danny right behind him, their pursuer closing in. The window creaked open, but as Liam squeezed through, he felt a sharp pain in his ankle. He looked down and saw a pair of spectral hands, their fingers cold and insubstantial, wrapped around his leg.
Liam, no.
He screamed and kicked out, but the grip only tightened. He looked back at Danny, his eyes pleading for help. But Danny just stood there, his face pale and drawn, his eyes wide with a strange mixture of fear and acceptance. The shadowy figure loomed over Danny, its form shifting and swirling like smoke. And then, to Liam's horror, Danny reached out and touched it. A look of peace washed over Danny's face, a serenity that Liam had never seen before.
It's okay, Liam. I understand now.
The ghostly grip on Liam's ankle loosened, and he fell to the ground outside, the breath knocked out of him. He lay there for a moment, gasping for air, staring back at the house, at the window where his friend had just disappeared. Scrambling to his feet, Liam ran. He didn't look back, didn't stop running until he broke free of the woods, the oppressive darkness replaced by the warm glow of the setting sun. He never told anyone what he had seen, what had happened to Danny. Who would believe him? Years later, haunted by the memory of that night, Liam returned to the woods. The house was gone, replaced by an empty clearing, the only evidence of its existence a faint indentation in the ground where the foundation once stood.
As he stood there, the wind whispering through the trees, he thought he heard Danny's voice, faint and distant, yet undeniably clear.
Don't be afraid, Liam. We're both home now.
Liam turned to leave, a cold shiver running down his spine, the horrifying realization dawning on him. He was never meant to escape. He was always meant to stay.